For decades, you have been told that 120/80 is the golden ticket. You walk into your doctor's office, the cuff squeezes your arm, and if that top number reads 140 or 145, the prescription pad comes out. You are told you are in the danger zone. But what if I told you that for those over 75, chasing that perfect 120 number might actually be causing more harm than good? What if the dizziness, the fatigue, and the brain fog you are feeling aren't just getting old, but are actually signs that your blood pressure is actually too low for your aging arteries? I'm Dr. Olha Kozyk. Today we are tackling one of the most controversial and critical topics in geriatric medicine. My approach to longevity is radically different from the standard treat the number mindset. I focus on functional hemodynamics, which is fancy medical speak for how does your blood flow actually feel in your daily life, not just what a machine says. If you are tired of generic advice that leaves you feeling weak or unsteady, I want to invite you to visit my website. You can simply search Olha Kozyk on Google or check the link on screen. I offer one-on-one consultations where we look at the whole picture, your medications, your metabolic health, and your specific vascular risks to find your personal perfusion sweet spot. Let's get into the 120/80 trap. When you are 30, your arteries are elastic. They're like fresh rubber hoses. If your heart pumps, they expand to handle the flow. But as we age, specifically past 65 and into the 70s and 80s, our arteries naturally stiffen. They become like rigid pipes. This is a normal part of biological aging. But here's the physics problem that most standard guidelines ignored for years. To push fluid through a stiff, narrow pipe and get it all the way up to the brain against gravity, you need more pressure, not less. If you aggressively lower an 80-year-old's blood pressure to 115 or 120, you might make the cardiologist happy on paper, but you're effectively starving the brain of oxygen. We call this hypoperfusion. In the neurology ward, we see the consequences. It's not always a massive stroke, it's subtle. It's the senior who sits in a chair all day because they feel wobbly. It's the grandmother who gets confused in the afternoon because her cerebral blood flow drops when she's been upright for too long. Shift tone to empathetic conversational. I saw a comment on a competitor's channel recently that really struck me. A woman named Margaret wrote, "My doctor has me on 3 blood pressure meds to get me to 120. I spend half my day on the couch because I feel like I'm going to pass out." Margaret, if you are listening, this video is for you. That feeling isn't normal. That is your body screaming for perfusion. This is where we have to distinguish between biological age and chronological age. Research published in JAMA Internal Medicine highlights a massive distinction between robust seniors and frail seniors. If you are 75, still playing tennis, walking 3 miles a day, and have no other major health issues, your target might be closer to that 130 range. But if you are frail, meaning you have slower walking speed, maybe some weight loss, or existing weakness, driving your blood pressure below 130 is statistically linked to higher mortality. Yes, you heard that right. Lower pressure in frail adults can increase the risk of death. Why? Because the body loses its reserve capacity to handle stress. This brings us to the most dangerous moment of your day, the sit to stand. We need to talk about orthostatic hypotension. This is the hidden trap. You get your blood pressure measured while sitting quietly in a warm doctor's office. It reads 125/75. Perfect, right? But what happens when you stand up to go to the kitchen? In a healthy young person, the body instantly constricts blood vessels in the legs to shoot blood up to the brain. But in an older adult with stiff arteries and maybe on beta blockers or diuretics, that reflex is slow. When you stand up, gravity pulls your blood down into your legs and your brain pressure plummets. That perfect 125 sitting pressure might drop to 90/60 when you stand. That's when you get dizzy. That's when you fall. And let's be brutally honest, for a senior, a fall is often more immediately life-threatening than a slightly elevated blood pressure reading. A hip fracture at 80 years old carries a devastating mortality rate.
If we're over-medicating you to prevent a theoretical stroke 10 years down the line, but we cause a hip fracture tomorrow because you got dizzy, we have failed you. This is why my private consultations are so valuable. I don't just look at one number. I encourage you to measure your blood pressure in a dynamic state. I will teach you to ask, what is it when you wake up? What is it 10 minutes after breakfast? What is it when you stand up? You can book a session with me at google.com/search key equals Olha Kozyk. Just search it on Google to learn how to track these metrics properly. We build a safety map rather than just chasing a single data point. Pause 0.5 seconds.
Now, I want to address the SPRINT trial because this is the research everyone cites. This was a massive study in 2016 that showed aiming for 120 saved lives. And it did. But, and this is a huge but, the way they measured blood pressure in that study was very specific. They had patients sit alone in a quiet room for 5 minutes with no doctors or nurses talking to them. Real-world blood pressure is usually higher than those measurements. If your doctor aims for 120 based on a rushed measurement in a noisy office, your true resting pressure might be dangerously low, like 100 or 105. So, what is the sweet spot? For many robust seniors, a systolic pressure, the top number, between 130 and 139 is increasingly seen as the Goldilocks zone. It is high enough to ensure your brain gets oxygen through those stiffer arteries, but not so high that it causes damage. If you are over 80, guidelines suggest that even up to 140 or 145 can be acceptable if it keeps you steady on your feet and mentally sharp. But how do you know where you fit? This is where self-awareness and expert guidance collide. You need to start monitoring for symptoms of hypoperfusion. Do you feel lightheaded when you stand up quickly? Do you feel a mid-afternoon slump where your brain just shuts off? Are your hands and feet constantly freezing? These can be signs your pressure is too low. I have developed a vitality checklist for my clients. It allows us to correlate your numbers with how you actually function. During a consultation, I review this log to spot patterns your general practitioner might miss in a 15-minute appointment. So here is your actionable plan. First, do the stand test. Get a home blood pressure cuff, measure your BP while sitting, then stand up, wait 1 minute, and measure it again while standing. If the top number drops by more than 20 points, tell your doctor immediately. This is a red flag. Second, hydrate with electrolytes. Older adults lose the sensation of thirst. Low blood volume leads to low pressure. I often advise my clients on how to balance hydration with mineral intake, sodium, potassium, magnesium, to keep blood volumes stable. Third, get personalized. Stop looking for a universal number. Your neighbor's target is not your target. I strongly urge you to search for Olha Kozyk on Google and visit my site. The medical system is overwhelmed. Doctors are forced to follow rigid guidelines that don't always account for your individual biology. I step into that gap. I give you the time, the analysis, and the strategy to manage your vascular health proactively. We want you to live long, but more importantly, we want you to live well. We want you walking, thinking, and enjoying life without the fear of falling. Don't let a number on a page dictate your quality of life. Understand your physiology, check your standing pressure, and please book that consultation so we can get you on the right path. I'm Dr. Olha Kozyk. Stay steady, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next video.